In the crowded courtroom, the air felt thick and heavy. Every word of the charges read out against Jack Miller, a police officer with 12 years of impeccable service, felt like another nail in the coffin. He sat silently in the defendant's chair, his hands clenched tightly as if that alone could keep him composed. Before him were his former colleagues, people he once called brothers, now standing on the other side, lying to convict him. Jack couldn't understand how everything had gone so wrong. He knew he was innocent, but no one believed him. When the judge pronounced guilty, the sound of the gavel felt like it shattered Jack's heart. He tried to stay composed, but his eyes instinctively turned to Max, his loyal K-9 partner, sitting nearby. Max had been Jack's companion for years. Together, they had undertaken countless missions, protecting their community and saving each other's lives more times than he could count. For Jack, Max was not just a working dog but his best friend and only family. The thought of being separated from Max was more painful than the verdict itself. Jack asked the judge for permission to say goodbye to Max. After a moment's hesitation, the judge nodded. Jack walked slowly toward Max, trying to hold back tears as he knelt beside him, stroking Max's soft fur. He whispered, "I'm sorry, Max. I can't protect you anymore. Be good. Okay?" Max, as if understanding Jack's words, pressed his head into Jack's hand, his eyes filled with loyalty and sadness. But then, Max suddenly became alert. His ears perked up, and his nose began sniffing Jack's jacket intently. At first, Jack thought Max was just reacting out of instinct. But when the dog focused on his coat, Jack started to suspect something unusual. Max growled softly, then tugged at the edge of Jack's jacket, pulling out a small, carefully hidden device from the inner lining. Jack held the device in his hand, his eyes wide with shock. He didn't recall ever seeing it before. The courtroom erupted in whispers as everyone turned their attention to Max's strange behavior. A police officer stepped forward, took the device from Jack, and examined it. "This is a recording device," he announced, making the entire courtroom buzz with surprise. The officer quickly played back the contents of the device. The recordings left everyone stunned. It was a conversation between two of Jack's colleagues discussing how they had framed him to cover up their own crimes. One of them even mentioned their superior's involvement in fabricating evidence. Jack stood frozen, unable to speak. His emotions churned between anger, helplessness, and hope. The recording in his hand was undeniable proof of his innocence. The whispers of blame and the judgmental stares vanished, replaced by shock and disbelief. The judge immediately called for a recess to investigate further. Jack, still reeling from the revelation, knelt down and hugged Max tightly. "You just saved me, Max. You're not just a dog, you're a hero," he said, his voice choked with emotion. Max wagged his tail slightly and pressed closer to Jack, as if offering comfort. In the days that followed, the recording device was thoroughly examined, and the truth became clear. Jack's colleagues, people he once trusted, had orchestrated the entire scheme to cover up their corruption and misconduct in a major case. They chose Jack as their scapegoat because he was the only one who dared to stand against their wrongdoings. But thanks to Max's loyalty and keen instincts, the truth finally came to light. Jack was exonerated. But the scars of betrayal remained. He had lost faith in the people he once considered family. Yet in his pain, he realized he still had Max, his most loyal friend who had stood by him through it all. As he walked out of the courtroom with Max by his side, Jack knew his life would never be the same. But at least he was no longer alone. Max, with his sharp instincts and unwavering loyalty, had not only saved Jack from a wrongful conviction but also reminded him of the value of truth and true friendship. From that day on, Jack decided to leave his career in law enforcement behind and focus on rebuilding his life with Max. The two often walked along familiar streets, cherishing the quiet moments they had never had the time to enjoy before. For Jack, Max was not just a working dog but a symbol of hope and salvation in the darkest time of his life. Max's discovery of the recording device completely changed the trajectory of the case. The recording contained something no one had expected: the voice of Captain Roy Harper, Jack's direct superior, clearly instructing the creation of fabricated evidence to frame him. In the recording, Harper discussed with two other officers how to scapegoat Jack, making him the fall guy to cover up their mistakes in a major case. Harper's cold, calculated words not only shocked Jack but also revealed a dark web of corruption he had never imagined. With this new evidence, the court was forced to suspend Jack's sentence and order a reinvestigation. Although Jack remained under house arrest during the proceedings, he felt the first glimmer of hope after months of despair. He knew the truth was beginning to surface, and it drove him to act swiftly. However, he couldn't do it alone. Sarah Collins, a trusted colleague of Jack's, was the first to step forward to help him. Sarah, a police officer dedicated to justice, had always believed in Jack's innocence. Upon hearing the recording, she immediately offered her assistance. "We need to dig deeper," Sarah said. "If Harper can do this to you, who knows how many others have fallen victim to him?" Jack agreed, and the two began their investigation. Jack and Sarah started by reviewing past cases that Captain Harper had overseen. They noticed a troubling pattern: major cases Harper led often ended under unusual circumstances. Witnesses disappeared, evidence contradicted itself, or key suspects were mysteriously dropped from investigations. Harper was frequently praised for his outstanding results, but those results often came with red flags. As they dug deeper, Jack and Sarah discovered that Harper wasn't acting alone. There was a network of other high-ranking officers who regularly collaborated with Harper to manipulate evidence and cover up wrongdoing. They even uncovered secret financial transactions involving large sums of money with no clear explanation. Sarah, skilled in analyzing documents, traced some of the money to organized crime groups in the city. These groups seemed to have bought protection from Harper and his associates. These revelations horrified Jack and Sarah. The corruption extended beyond the police force, infiltrating local government agencies and businesses. "This isn't just about framing me," Jack said gravely. "They've created a system to protect themselves and bury the truth, no matter who gets destroyed." Sarah nodded in agreement. "And if we don't stop this, more lives will be ruined." The two knew they needed more evidence to back up their findings. Jack and Sarah began monitoring Harper's transactions with criminal groups. With the help of a few trusted allies within the police department, they secretly collected data from emails, phone calls, and internal documents. Each new piece of evidence painted a clearer picture of the system's decay. Harper wasn't just accepting bribes to overlook crimes, he was actively aiding criminal organizations in executing their plans in exchange for power and wealth. During one investigation, Sarah uncovered a previously unpublished report from an old case involving Harper. The report revealed that Harper had deliberately falsified a witness's testimony, leading to the wrongful conviction of an innocent man. When Jack examined it further, he discovered that the conviction occurred shortly before Harper received a large sum of money from a crime syndicate. "We're dealing with a monster," Sarah whispered. "He didn't just frame you. He's done this to countless others and will keep doing it if he isn't stopped." Exposing the truth, however, was no simple task. Harper and his accomplices were powerful individuals who could expertly cover their tracks. Sarah and Jack knew that one small misstep could lead to their exposure and retaliation. But they didn't back down. With every new piece of evidence, they moved closer to unraveling the entire network of corruption. Above all, they knew that as long as they persisted, justice would prevail. Jack, Max and Sarah had no idea their investigation had drawn the attention of the corruption network. Over recent days, they felt increasing pressure. Their phones were tapped. Cars followed. And shadowy figures loitered near the investigation office. But their suspicions were confirmed when a sudden attack occurred. That night, as Jack and Sarah reviewed crucial evidence in the office, a group of armed intruders broke in, clearly intent on destroying everything they had gathered. Max was the first to sense the danger. He barked loudly, alerting Jack and Sarah. As the sound of pounding on the door echoed through the office, they realized the gravity of the situation. Jack hastily stuffed all the vital documents, hard drives, and recording devices into a backpack. "We need to get out now," he said, his tone grave. Sarah nodded, quickly scanning to ensure they didn't leave anything behind. As the intruders broke through the front door, Jack and Sarah slipped out the back, Max following close behind. The escape was tense and fraught with danger. The attackers didn't give up easily, pursuing Jack, Max and Sarah through the city's dark alleys. Max, with his sharp instincts, led them through hidden paths, helping them narrowly evade capture. Finally, they reached a safe haven, an abandoned warehouse on the city's outskirts. Exhausted and breathless, the trio knew they couldn't stay for long. While in hiding, Jack and Sarah continued analyzing the data they had collected. Amidst the chaotic files, Sarah uncovered a critical document, an internal memo signed by AR. They realized that AR was none other than Alexander Royce, a powerful and influential politician. Royce had used his position to orchestrate the corruption network, shielding criminal organizations and manipulating the legal system to maintain his power. Jack felt a surge of anger. Royce wasn't just undermining justice, he was destroying countless innocent lives, including Jack's. "We've found the head of the snake," Sarah said, her voice tinged with rage. "But what do we do now? Do we release this evidence immediately? Or keep digging to dismantle the entire network?" Her question hung heavily in the air. Releasing the evidence now would put Royce in the spotlight. But it risked only toppling part of the network without dismantling it entirely. On the other hand, continuing their investigation would give them the chance to expose everyone involved. But it also increased their danger. Jack looked at Max, who sat quietly beside him. In that moment, he recalled everything they had endured, the betrayal, the wrongful conviction, and Max's unwavering loyalty. "We can't let this go on," Jack said, his resolve firm. "I want to take down the entire network. But we need to be cautious. One mistake could ruin everything." Sarah agreed. And the group decided to press on with extreme care. They reached out to a few trusted journalists willing to support them when the time came to expose the truth. At the same time, they contacted honest police officers who had witnessed Harper and his accomplices' misconduct but had been too afraid to speak out. "If we want to win, we need allies," Sarah said. "This isn't just our fight." In the days that followed, Jack and Sarah dug deeper into the files. They uncovered more evidence of Royce directing Harper and other officers in staged cases. Secret financial transactions, recorded phone calls, And even surveillance footage all pointed to Royce as the center of the corruption web. However, the danger grew with every step. The warehouse where they were hiding was constantly surveilled, forcing them to relocate several times in the middle of the night to avoid detection. One evening, as Max slept beside them, Jack whispered to Sarah, "I don't know if we can do this without putting ourselves in danger. But I know that if we don't try, no one else will." Sarah nodded, understanding that their mission wasn't just about clearing Jack's name, it was about protecting justice for those who couldn't fight for themselves. Their battle was far from over. But Jack knew they were closing in on the truth. And this time, with Max by his side, he believed they wouldn't fail. Jack, Max and Sarah knew they had one final chance to expose everything. The evidence they had gathered was strong. But one crucial piece was still missing, the list of transactions and the names of everyone involved in the corruption network. This information was stored in a high-security facility under the control of Alexander Royce. To reveal the truth, they needed to infiltrate the facility and retrieve the evidence. It was a dangerous mission. But the trio didn't hesitate. On the appointed night, Jack and Sarah, with Max's support, approached the facility. It was guarded by state-of-the-art security systems and heavily armed guards. Sarah, with her technical expertise, disabled the exterior surveillance cameras, allowing them to sneak in undetected. Max, with his sharp instincts, led them through dark corridors, avoiding security checkpoints. However, just as they neared the storage area, an alarm unexpectedly blared. One of the guards had detected their presence, forcing the group into a tense situation. Reinforcements quickly arrived, and a gunfight ensued. Jack, reluctant to use violence, was forced to defend himself, taking cover behind storage crates. He returned fire to protect Sarah and Max. Meanwhile, Max darted through small gaps, biting the arm of a guard approaching Sarah, giving her time to unlock the storage room. When the door finally opened, Sarah rushed inside to locate the data. She quickly identified the server containing the list of transactions, documents, and names. Sarah began downloading the files onto a portable drive. But time was running out. The guards outside multiplied, and the sound of gunfire echoed constantly. Jack held his position at the entrance, with Max remaining vigilant to prevent anyone from reaching Sarah. When the download was complete, Sarah shouted, "It's done. We need to leave now." Jack signaled for the group to retreat. They dashed through the hallways, Max leading the way to find the quickest escape route. Several times, they barely avoided capture. But Max's instincts and the group's teamwork allowed them to evade their pursuers. When they finally reached their vehicle, Jack and Sarah sighed with relief, knowing the hardest part was over, but the battle was far from finished. The next morning, Jack and Sarah met with a trusted journalist from a major newspaper. This journalist had been following Jack's case from the start and agreed to help expose the truth. All the data was handed over. And within hours, a series of articles, videos, and documents flooded the media. The identities of those involved, including Captain Harper and Alexander Royce, were made public. Shady financial transactions, fabricated cases, and collusion between police officers and criminal organizations were laid bare. Public outrage erupted. Protests broke out across the city, demanding deeper investigations and systemic reform. Royce, Harper, and their accomplices couldn't escape. Police and federal agencies arrested everyone involved, bringing them to justice. Royce, once at the pinnacle of power, now faced dozens of charges, including corruption, abuse of power, and conspiracy. For Jack, this was not just the restoration of his honor but a victory for justice. The accusations he had once faced were replaced with apologies from the system and the community. But above all, he knew he couldn't have achieved this without Sarah and Max. Max, with his loyalty and sharp instincts, had been the first to uncover the truth and had stood by Jack throughout this arduous journey. As things settled down, Jack, Sarah, and Max stood by the familiar lakeside where it all began. Jack knelt beside Max, his eyes full of gratitude. "You're not just a dog, Max. You're a hero," he said. Max wagged his tail, pressing his head into Jack's hand. Sarah smiled, knowing that what they had endured was not just a fight for justice but a testament to the power of friendship and perseverance. The corruption network had been dismantled. But Jack knew the fight to protect justice would always continue. With Max by his side, he felt ready to face any challenge the future might bring. And most importantly, he knew he was never alone. The day Jack was declared innocent was one he would never forget. After the irrefutable evidence Max and Sarah had gathered and revealed, all charges against Jack were dropped. In front of the entire town, the judge delivered the final verdict, acknowledging that Jack was not only innocent but also a victim of a complex conspiracy. The courtroom erupted in applause as Jack walked out. No longer a wrongfully accused man but a symbol of resilience and justice. Max ran to Jack as soon as he saw him, wagging his tail joyfully as if all the pain and tension of the past months had evaporated. Jack knelt down, wrapping his arms around his loyal companion. "I told you, Max. We'd get through this," he whispered, his eyes brimming with tears of happiness. For Jack, being exonerated was not just a personal victory but a chance to rebuild his life with Max by his side. Jack's exoneration sent shockwaves through the police force and the community. Many began questioning the judicial system and the investigative processes within law enforcement. Those involved in the corruption network, from Alexander Royce to Captain Harper and their accomplices, were prosecuted and held accountable. This was not just a personal triumph for Jack but a significant step toward restoring integrity and fairness to the police force. For Jack, life didn't end with his vindication. He realized that what happened to him could happen to anyone else without people like Sarah or Max to help. Thus, Jack decided not to return to his regular role as a police officer. Instead, he focused on assisting investigations into corruption and injustice within the system, using his experience to prevent similar cases. "I don't want anyone to go through what I did," Jack said in an interview. "If I can do something to protect justice, I will." Max was no longer just an ordinary canine dog. He became a symbol of loyalty and courage. Many in the town admired Max and children often called him the four-legged hero. Jack frequently brought Max to community events, where he shared their story and inspired others with lessons of truth, perseverance, and friendship. One afternoon, Jack and Max decided to leave the city and take some time to rest after months of tension. They stopped at a wide-open field, where the golden hues of the sunset painted the sky. Jack threw a ball far ahead, and Max, with his signature agility, dashed after it and brought it back. Jack's laughter mixed with Max's joyful barks, creating a scene of pure peace. It was the first time in a long while that Jack felt everything was truly okay. As the sun set, Jack sat down on the grass, with Max lying beside him, resting his head on Jack's lap. A gentle breeze carried the scent of fresh grass and the stillness of nature. Jack looked at Max softly stroking his fur. "Thank you, Max," he said, his voice full of gratitude. "I don't know if I could have made it without you." Max wagged his tail slightly. But his eyes seemed to convey that he, too, felt the joy and serenity of the moment. For both Jack and Max, this wasn't just the end of a painful journey but the beginning of a new life. They had proven that justice, no matter how deeply hidden, could be uncovered with persistence and the help of loyal friends. The final scene was Jack and Max walking toward the horizon, where the sunset painted the sky a radiant orange. It was not just a symbol of closing a painful chapter but also a promise of a hopeful future, where justice would always prevail, and friendship would endure forever.